So let's talk a little bit about the ways in which we use networked communications, right? So what are some ways that you think that we use the internet? What purposes do we use it for? What, do we use texting for? What do we use, all these different techniques for having these connections with people we maybe don't know. How do we use them on a regular basis? Right? So one of the ways in which we use this, and this should be pretty straightforward to you all, is business. So with businesses, we see that we're getting more and more business being done online. And many of you are going to be very, very familiar with this as you grow up with Amazon being a thing, as you grow up with buying most of your stuff through online retailers. Most of you probably bought your books online. And you're seeing that that's becoming more and more important to our business technology. I mean, you all are getting into this field either out of interest for the research or out of interest for the business prospects related to technology. So there's clearly a lot going on here within business. Most people have websites now that they either sell things through or try to advertise with. So that's a pretty important part. Another aspect is crowdsourcing. So crowdsourcing isn't just things like Kickstarter or Indiegogo. It's also things like Wikipedia, where you're crowdsourcing knowledge and you're crowdsourcing basically uh, getting people to write stuff down or to contribute to work. Is not just about crowdsourcing money, it's also about crowdsourcing other things such as thought processes, historical information, data. There's all kinds of ways in which we crowdsource nowadays. And you should all also be familiar with this next one, which is education. So clearly we're using the internet right now to do our course and to have networked communications through Microsoft Teams, through other aspects of this course. We're using the internet a lot. We're using these technologies very consistently. It's obviously something that we can do as we're doing it right now, but it's also becoming more and more common, not just with, in our current situation, such as COVID, but also as just like a standard practice. You're going to see a lot of people doing massively online open courses. Um, this is something that you could sign up for. You could sign up for an online course through various different websites. You could go through course tutorials on Khan Academy, right? There's lots of different ways in which you can interact with the world through educational means in terms of network communications. So we have not just things like what we're doing in this class or Khan Academy or these online courses, but you also just generally have YouTube videos, right? When I don't know how to do something, when I'm taking care of my house and I come across a thing and I don't know how to do it because I've never done it before, the first thing I do is I go look up a YouTube video, right? Like that's super common. That's something that I'm sure you all do very frequently, and it's not something that's going to go away anytime soon. Another aspect is gaming. So even if you don't play competitive games, so you're not playing something like League of Legends, you're not playing Overwatch, right? You're not trying to compete in tournaments. You're probably still doing some amount of gaming online. A lot of mobile apps, for example, do some form of network communication in the background at least. When you're playing your game, it syncs, your progress or purchases, those kind of things. So even if gaming isn't something you're really into, it's probably something you're still doing at least a little bit here or there, and it's becoming a much more common part of people's lives to game in some capacity online as a social experience, which, you know, is another big part of this network communications. It's got that keyword in there, communications, where we want to socialize and talk to other people and interact with others. Another aspect is IoT devices. These are becoming more and more common, and we'll talk more about the issues with IoT devices in terms of their specific ethics, but right now we're going to focus on their network communication aspects. So IoT devices, or the Internet of Things, are basically devices that don't traditionally need to connect to the internet, but do so you can turn them on with your smartphone or with Alexa or some other smart technology. For example, I have some smart technology in my home. I have a lamp that I can turn on by talking to my Amazon Alexa, right? And I can just say, hey, turn on the lamp, and then it turns on the lamp. That's IoT devices. But there's coffee makers and garage door openers and front door locks and all kinds of things that you could have as an IoT. I actually at one point had a washing machine and dryer that came with IoT technology, which was ridiculous. I never used it. I never wanted to control my washing machine or dryer with my smartphone, and I don't know who does. Maybe one of you do, and you can explain that to me, but I don't get it. So IoT is a big aspect of network communications, especially now because it's growing. And the last area that we're going to talk about is humanitarian aid. So as much as technologies like this can create problems, it can also create solutions. And one of those things that we're frequently seeing is that humanitarian aid organizations such as Habitat for Humanity or the Red Cross or these other organizations can take in donations digitally, which allows them to potentially garner more donations to fund what they do around the world. And that can be a really big aspect of network communications, is helping other people much more quickly. For example, Cookeville actually received a lot of donations from not just people in Cookeville, but also from Nashville and Knoxville and other areas around the United States as people donated to help us from the tornado recovery. And there's other ways in which we see people come together to give to others, and sometimes this is done through crowdsourcing applications, but other times it's done directly through humanitarian websites. So the next area that I want to talk about is censorship and then things that make the internet difficult, and those are going to be in the next video. And after that, we're going to have a few more videos talking about breaking trust and some of the other consequences of networked communications.